So, Abby, whenever you saw this little human struggling, talk about his struggles, that he became anxious, he would get angry because what was happening to him?
So what we learned, what we knew was that he was frustrated all the time. He was anxious. Even when he would talk to us and tell us a story, he would get really, really frustrated and lose his patience and just panic and just freak out. And we learned that ultimately in the end, we learned that it was the dyslexia, that he was having a hard time. It just took him longer for it to come from our mouths to his brain, for him to process, and then for him to get it back out. So telling a story, when we would interrupt, it would just infuriate him.
Got it.
Or like similar, like several things like that. Or like in the classroom, he would get frustrated because he would have something to say, and oftentimes the teacher would just move on and say, oh, we'll come back to you. He just needed that little bit of extra time to get it from here to here.
Well, and I think that a lot of people don't realize that dyslexia really is about that processing. It's not necessarily about the eyeballs. It's about what your brain is doing with the visual or auditory stimulus. And it gets
And I had no idea until, and I had been teaching 10 years. By the time, the only signs we saw was that he was struggling in his reading. But he wasn't struggling in his comprehension. And that was what was so important for me to realize, I think.
Yeah.
That we could read out loud to him. Like he and his dad still read. They've read all of the Percy Jackson books.
Oh, I love those. Yeah.
All of them. I'm like 20 of them. And Grayson can remember and carry on, and the entire story for years they've been doing this. If he hears it auditory and it's going consecutive.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Like even just when you ask a question, you can tell he's replaying it and trying to focus and get it out. So I can imagine with writing, it's hard too.
Definitely. So what are you seeing with him as a little human that's helped him, and how is he doing now?
Good. I think what it took for us was having the testing done and being able to explain to him that he is unique, that it's not super uncommon, that lots of people struggle with it. Some people, they never figured out.
Right.
And that learning how to advocate for himself, I think, is a really big deal.
Yes.
Just having accommodations for testing is not going to get him through life. Learning how to advocate for himself and learning how to come up with his own strategies to get through things, I think, is the key.
Bam!